Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's story, well, I think you'll need to brace yourself for this one. I wouldn't be surprised if you feel a cold shiver crawling down your spine by the end. Heck, you might even sleep with the lights on tonight, or never look at your own reflection the same way again. Before we dive in, why not smash that subscribe button? You know, for luck. Trust me, you'll want all the luck you can get after hearing this story. Now let's begin. I'm Ethan Crow, private investigator. I've chased down serial killers, tracked missing persons, and spent sleepless nights staring at crime scene photos that would make your stomach turn. But nothing prepared me for what I encountered in the locked room case of Jessica Harper. It started on a gray Thursday morning. My phone buzzed with a call from Detective Raymond Grant, an old friend on the force. He wasn't one to spook easily, but his voice had an unfamiliar tightness when he spoke. "Ethan, we've got a situation. An upscale apartment in downtown Seattle. A 23-year-old woman vanished from inside her locked bedroom. Front door locked from the inside. No sign of forced entry. Windows bolted, no escape routes. The building's security cameras showed no one entering or leaving. Jessica Harper was simply gone. I arrived at the scene mid-morning. Rain hammered the city, making the streets slick and shining. A patrolman escorted me up to the 8th floor of the Emerald Towers. The hallway was unremarkable beige carpet, soft lighting, the hum of the elevator down the corridor. Yet, something about the air felt heavier here, like stepping into a space that wasn't quite empty. Detective Grant met me at the door to apartment 8-12. "You're gonna want to see this for yourself," he said grimly. Inside, the apartment was pristine, a modern space with minimalist decor, gray sectional sofa, glass coffee table, monochrome art, prints on the walls, everything in its place. We moved to the bedroom. The door had been locked from the inside when Jessica's roommate, Claire, returned late the previous night. Claire told officers she'd heard Jessica talking to someone in the room hours earlier, soft murmuring, though no one else had been seen entering. Then silence. By morning, with no response and the door still locked. Claire had called the police. They broke the door open. The room was empty. No Jessica, no signs of struggle, no blood, just empty. I stepped inside. It was an ordinary bedroom at first glance. Queen bed neatly made, a laptop on the desk, a vanity with a tall, ornate mirror standing against the far wall, its surface dull in the dim light. A faint scent of lavender lingered in the air. But then I noticed something odd. A thin trail of moisture streaked across the hardwood floor, leading from the mirror toward the center of the room. The wood was slick and cold to the touch, as if condensation had seeped from somewhere unseen. "Any idea what that is?" I asked. Grant shook his head. Forensics couldn't trace it. No leaks, no explanation. I crouched lower, running a finger through the damp path. It wasn't water, it felt heavier, slightly viscous, leaving a faint chill on my skin. I glanced at the mirror. Its frame was antique, almost out of place amid the apartment's modern aesthetic. Carved woodwork, small symbols etched along the edges. The glass itself seemed subtly warped, as if rippling beneath the surface. A sudden, faint sound made me freeze. A soft sigh, not from the hallway, not from the officers, from right behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. No movement, no one. I looked back at the mirror. For a brief instant, barely a heartbeat, I thought I saw a shape flicker within its depths. The silhouette of a slender figure, head bowed, long dark hair falling forward. Then it was gone. I stood there, heart pounding. The other officers noticed my reaction. "You okay?" Grant asked. I swallowed hard. Yeah, just thought I saw something. I wasn't ready to admit what I really saw. Not yet, because the deeper I stared into that mirror, the more certain I became Jessica Harper hadn't left this room by any normal means, and something was still here. I left the apartment late that afternoon. The image of the mirror still seared into my mind. The shape I'd seen, if I'd truly seen it, lingered like an afterimage behind my eyes. I needed answers. Fast. My first step was to speak with Claire Montgomery, Jessica's roommate. We met in the building's small communal lounge. Claire was visibly shaken, pale with dark circles under her eyes. Her hands trembled as she gripped a paper cup of coffee. "I don't know what happened," she whispered. Jessica was acting strange. For days. Strange how she kept staring at that mirror, hours at a time. She wouldn't answer me when I called her, and sometimes at night. I heard her talking, but her voice sounded wrong, like someone else was speaking through her. I leaned forward. "Did she ever mention where the mirror came from?" Claire hesitated, then nodded. "She bought it from an old antiques dealer in Pike Place Market. Said it was beautiful. Said it felt special." Her words sent a chill down my spine. Pike Place was known for its quirky shops, but also for items with less than savory histories. "Did she say anything else?" I pressed. Claire's eyes filled with tears. She told me if I ever heard tapping from inside the mirror, I should never answer. I froze, tapping. She nodded slowly. I remembered the faint sigh in the bedroom. Could there be more to it? Later that evening, I returned to the apartment alone. Grant arranged for me to have unrestricted access overnight. As the forensic team had completed their sweep, the building was quiet. The usual bustle of the day faded into eerie stillness. Inside apartment 812, the air felt colder. The trail of moisture on the floor had dried, but a faint, musty odor lingered, something earthy. Ancient. I examined the mirror more closely. Symbols along its frame resembled a mix of Eastern and Western iconography. Some I recognized warding symbols. Others were unfamiliar. The glass itself remained subtly distorted, as if breathing. I set up my camera and began recording. I wanted to capture any phenomena, no matter how subtle. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Nothing. Then at 2:47 a.m., tap, tap, tap. The sound was faint but distinct, coming from the mirror. I held my breath. The room felt impossibly cold, the hairs on my arms standing upright. The tapping repeated slow, deliberate. I forced myself to speak. "Jessica, is that you?" Silence. Then, so faint I almost missed it, came a whisper, barely audible through the recorder. "Help. Me." My blood ran ice cold. I approached the mirror. The surface remained unchanged, but my reflection seemed wrong. Its movements lagged a fraction behind mine, and the eyes, my own eyes, looked dull, lifeless. Suddenly, behind my reflection, a shadow flickered, a woman's shape, arms outstretched, mouth open in a silent scream. I staggered back, pulse hammering. The figure vanished. I reviewed the footage immediately. The audio captured the tapping and the whisper, but visually, the recording showed only static during those moments. Static that hadn't appeared before or after. I sat there in the dark, the mirror looming before me. Jessica Harper was gone, but something remained, something watching, waiting, and I had a sinking feeling. This was only the beginning. By morning, I knew I needed to dig deeper, not just into the mirror, but into Jessica's life before her disappearance. I started with her phone records. Claire had given the police Jessica's phone, which had been found on her bed screen cracked, battery drained. I managed to pull the last few calls and texts. The last outgoing call had been to a number listed simply as Ms. Leon. I traced it to an elderly woman named May Leon, who ran a small, tucked-away antiques shop in the back alleys of Pike Place Market. I wasted no time heading there. The shop was dimly lit, cluttered with artifacts from all over the world. The air smelled of aged paper and incense, Mei Lian greeted me with wary eyes. "You seek answers about the mirror," she said. Before I even introduced myself, I froze. "You sold it to Jessica Harper." She nodded slowly. She insisted. I warned her, "That piece is not meant for the curious." I leaned in. "What is it?" Mei Lian sighed. "It is called the Glass of Longing. It was crafted centuries ago in a monastery in northern China, used in forbidden rituals meant to summon the reflection of one's deepest desire. But desire can be a dangerous thing." She gestured toward a faded book beneath the counter. The text was ancient, but one translated line caught my eye. "To gaze too long is to invite the other within." I asked her about the tapping, the whispering. She nodded gravely. "When the boundary weakens, the trapped soul seeks release, but the other may take its place." My stomach tightened. "What happened to Jessica?" I asked. "I do not know," Mei Lian whispered, "but if her spirit called for help, it may not be too late." I left the shop shaken. Jessica had likely performed some kind of ritual intentionally, or not unlocking the mirror's curse. And now, something else was trying to come through. That night, I pored over every detail of the case again. Jessica's journal, found beneath her bed, provided the missing piece. The last entry read, "The mirror shows her now. I see her in my dreams. She beckons me, I must understand." The writing grew more erratic near the bottom of the page. "If I am gone, tell Claire. The mirror is a door." The words hit me like a punch. The mirror wasn't a simple artifact. It was a gateway, but to where? Determined to find out. I returned to the apartment once more. The room seemed darker than before, shadows pooling in the corners. I set my recorder again, lit a single candle before the mirror, sat cross-legged on the floor, heart pounding. "Jessica," I whispered. "I'm here. Show me." For a long moment, nothing. Then the candle flickered violently. The air grew icy. A low, guttural moan rose from the mirror. My reflection darkened, eyes hollow, mouth twitching. Suddenly, a pale hand pressed against the inside of the glass. Fingers splayed. I couldn't move behind the hand. Jessica's face emerged, eyes wide with terror, lips moving soundlessly. Then a second pair of eyes appeared over her shoulder, black, empty, hungry. My body broke free from the paralysis. I grabbed the mirror's frame. Jessica hold on a deafening crack split the air. The glass shuddered. The hand slipped away. Jessica's face dissolved into swirling darkness, and then all was still. The candle flickered out. I sat there, alone with the silence. But one thing was certain now. Jessica was trapped inside that mirror, and something else was coming out. Sleep was impossible that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jessica's face pressed against the glass, those wide, desperate eyes pleading with me. By dawn, I'd made a decision. If the mirror was a door, there had to be a way to force it open or shut it for good. I reached out to a friend of mine, Dr. Samuel Keene, a professor of religious studies with a focus on occult practices. We met in his cramped university office, walls lined with tomes on esoteric lore. I showed him the photo I'd taken of the symbols on the mirror's frame. His brow furrowed. "You know what this is?" I shook my head. "It's a hybrid of Eastern mirror magic and Western necromantic seals. The mix is unstable and dangerous." He flipped through a leather-bound volume, fingers trembling slightly. "The Glass of Longing ritual is meant to bind a soul between realms, half here, half beyond. But if the ritual was incomplete, the barrier would thin. The trapped soul might try to escape or be consumed by something else." He looked at me gravely. "The other is a reflection that learns. It mimics. It waits." The words sent a chill through me. "Can it be stopped?" I asked. He hesitated. "There is a counter-ritual, but it requires facing the reflection directly, a battle of willpower. Fail, and you may take their place." I swallowed hard. It was a risk I was willing to take. That evening, armed with the ritual instructions, I returned to apartment 812. The air inside felt heavier, each breath like inhaling fog. I set up my equipment audio recorder. Camera, salt circle around the mirror. A single black candle flickered beside me. I began the chant, voice shaking but steady. The mirror's surface rippled, my reflection distorted, eyes blackening. Behind me, the faint outline of Jessica appeared again, hands pressed to the glass. Mouth forming silent words. Then the tapping began. Tap, tap, tap. I held my ground. Jessica, I'm here. Fight it. Her eyes locked on mine. Suddenly, a second reflection emerged beside her, my own face, but twisted, grinning. Its eyes gleamed with malevolent hunger. The air grew frigid. My breath came in ragged gasps. The other stepped forward, pushing against the glass. A low, rattling laugh echoed through the room. "You cannot save her," it whispered in my voice. "But you can join her." I felt an icy grip around my chest, pulling me toward the mirror. The symbols on the frame pulsed with dark light. Desperately, I focused on Jessica's face. "Fight it, remember who you are." She screamed silently. The glass cracked. I shouted the final words of the chant. A blinding flash of light erupted. The mirror convulsed cracks, spiderwebbing across its surface. The other shrieked, face contorting in rage. Jessica's figure seemed to be pulled backward, deeper into the void. Then a thunderous shatter. I was thrown back as the mirror exploded outward, shards raining across the room. Silence followed. I lay there, heart pounding, body trembling. When I finally rose, the mirror was gone, reduced to jagged fragments. But among them, I found a single, perfectly smooth shard, warm to the touch. And within its surface, a faint image of Jessica's face remained, watching, waiting. The ritual had disrupted the connection but hadn't freed her. I pocketed the shard. This wasn't over, not yet. In the days that followed, I carried the shard everywhere, unable to part with it, unwilling to risk leaving it unattended. At first, I told myself it was caution, but deep down, I knew the truth. The connection remained. I began noticing subtle changes. Shadows lingered longer in corners. Reflections flickered when I passed windows. And late at night, I heard faint tapping impossible to trace. The shard grew colder each day. Desperate for answers, I returned to Mei Lian's shop. She greeted me with a sorrowful gaze, as if expecting my return. "The mirror is broken," I told her, "but something remains." She examined the shard, her fingers trembling as she traced its edge. "You have captured a fragment of the soul," she whispered, "but the bond is incomplete. If left unresolved, it will consume you. What can I do?" She hesitated, then retrieved a dusty scroll from a hidden drawer. "This speaks of the mirror's eye, a ritual designed to either sever the bond or fully release the trapped spirit. But it must be performed where the mirror first drew its power." I frowned. "You mean Jessica's apartment?" She nodded. "And you must not be alone." I contacted Detective Grant. At first, he was skeptical, but the evidence spoke for itself. The audio recordings, the footage, my deteriorating state. He agreed to assist. 2 nights later, we stood together in apartment 812, empty now. Stripped of furniture, a hollow shell, the shard rested at the center of a new circle. Symbols meticulously drawn in chalk and salt. Candles ringed the space, their flames wavering. We began the chant, voices echoing in the still air. At first, nothing. Then the temperature dropped. Frost crawled across the windows. The candles dimmed. The shard pulsed with eerie light. And then Jessica's voice, faint but clear. "Help. Me, please." I stepped forward. "Jessica, we're here. Hold on." The air rippled. The room twisted. dimensions warping as if space itself bent. Suddenly, the other appeared, its form a writhing mass of shadow and distorted features. It lunged toward the circle. Shrieking, Grant and I held firm, voices rising. The shard floated upward, spinning wildly. Jessica's face emerged within the swirling light, eyes wide, hands reaching. The other howled, tendrils thrashing against the circle's barrier. I focused every ounce of will. Jessica, you're stronger. Fight it. Her image flickered, then solidified. The tendrils recoiled. A final surge of energy burst from the shard, knocking us both to the floor. When the light faded, the shard lay still, cracked, its glow extinguished. Jessica's voice whispered one last time, "Thank you," and then silence. The apartment felt lighter. The oppressive weight lifted. Grant helped me to my feet. We exchanged a weary glance. "It's over," he asked. I wasn't sure, but for now, the danger seemed gone. We left the apartment together, dawn breaking on the horizon. Yet, even now, I sometimes catch fleeting glimpses in reflective surfaces, a shadow, a whisper, a reminder that some doors, once opened, never fully close. Weeks passed. The mirror was gone, the shard inert. I tried to convince myself it was finished, but the truth gnawed at me. The bond was not fully severed. Sleep became elusive. In the dead of night, I heard the tapping again. Subtle, patient, always in threes. Tap, tap, tap. Oh, at first, I blamed fatigue, stress, trauma. But when my bathroom mirror fogged over one cold morning, a single word appeared in the condensation: help. I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding. I needed answers, final ones, driven by a growing obsession. I returned to Mei Lian once more. She took one look at me and sighed. "It is not finished," she said softly. "Your bond to her remains." "How do I end it?" I demanded. She hesitated, then whispered, "You must find where the mirror first connected her to the other. Not the apartment, the origin." I frowned. Where Mei Lian handed me an old photograph, Jessica standing outside an abandoned mansion in Ravens Hollow, a town an hour outside Seattle. In her journal, a single line matched the address. I must visit the source, the place where it called to me. I drove to Ravens Hollow that night. The mansion was a decaying ruin, long abandoned, windows shattered, vines strangling the facade. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay, but deeper within, a hidden chamber awaited. Symbols lined the walls, matching those from the mirror's frame. A shattered pedestal sat at the center. Shards of an ancient mirror scattered across the floor. It had begun here. I set up a circle, lit black candles, and placed the remaining shard at the center. Breathing slow, I began the chant once more. The air grew cold, shadows lengthened. Jessica's voice echoed faintly. "Ethan," I called to her. "I'm here, this ends now." Suddenly, the other erupted from the darkness, stronger, more desperate. It lunged, clawing at the barrier. I poured every ounce of will into the ritual. "Jessica, fight it. You're stronger." She appeared flickering, struggling against the tendrils binding her. The chamber shook. Cracks split the walls. With a final cry, Jessica broke free, her image glowing with pure light. The other screamed, its form collapsing inward, devoured by its own shadows. A blinding flash consumed the room. When the light faded, the shard lay cracked and lifeless. Jessica's voice spoke one last time. "Thank you. Goodbye." I sat in the darkness, breath ragged. It was over, this time, truly. I returned to Seattle at dawn, exhausted but at peace. The mirrors no longer whispered. The tapping ceased. But I kept the lifeless shard a reminder. Some doors should never be opened, and some reflections should never be trusted. I wish I could say that was the end, that my life returned to normal after that night in Ravens Hollow. But the truth is, something changed in me. For weeks after, I avoided mirrors, covered them, broke some. The reflection I saw no longer felt like my own. Then the dreams began. Always the same, I'd find myself standing in Jessica's apartment, facing the broken mirror. Her voice would call out faintly from the darkness beyond. "Ethan, help me." I'd wake drenched in sweat, pulse racing. I confided in Grant, who urged me to take time off. I tried, but the nightmares persisted. Finally, desperate, I visited Mei-Lian once more. She examined me carefully. "You carry a scar on your spirit," she said softly. "The bond is broken, but the wound remains. Will it fade?" I asked. She nodded, in time. If you let it. I took her advice to heart, forced myself to return to daily life, cases, training, long walks without thinking of reflections. Slowly, the grip of the experience loosened, but every so often late at night I'd hear it. Tap, 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 faint, distant, as if from some unseen place just beyond the veil. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of memory. But one evening, while visiting Claire to update her, she handed me a sealed envelope. "I found this in Jessica's things," she said. "It's addressed to you." Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside, a single handwritten note. "If you're reading this, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the mirror. I only wanted to see her again, my sister. But now I know some doors should remain closed. Thank you for trying. I hope you can forgive me." A photograph fell from the note, a picture of Jessica and her sister, smiling in happier times. I sat in silence, grief and guilt swirling. Jessica's fate had been sealed by longing, a desire to reconnect with the past. And in that, I saw my own reflection, how easy it was to be drawn into darkness by the promise of what might be. I left the note and photo at a small memorial, Grant, and I arranged for Jessica flowers, candles, a place for closure. As I stood there beneath the gray Seattle sky, I made a vow. I would continue my work, not just to solve strange cases, but to ensure no one else would fall prey to such unseen horrors. But even now, when the nights are long and silent, I catch myself glancing at the corners of darkened mirrors, listening, waiting, because deep down, a part of me knows. Some reflections are never truly gone. Months have passed. The case of Jessica Harper was officially closed, ruled an unsolved disappearance, though those of us who truly knew the story understood otherwise. Grant and I agreed to keep the details hidden from the official record. Some truths were too dangerous to share. Some doors, if spoken of openly, invited curiosity, and curiosity invited danger. I resumed my work, diving into other strange cases across the country. Yet, no matter how many miles I put between myself and apartment 812, the memory followed. Late one stormy night, I received a call. It was Claire. "There's something you should see," she said, voice trembling. I met her at her home. She led me to Jessica's old bedroom, now preserved as a kind of shrine. On the desk sat Jessica's laptop, long dormant. Claire had finally gathered the courage to power it on. Among her files, we found video recordings, clips of Jessica experimenting with the mirror in the weeks before her disappearance. One clip in particular chilled me. The screen flickered to life. Jessica sat before the mirror, voice soft. "I've seen her. I think I can reach her tonight." She began the chant, imperfect, hesitant. The glass darkened, her eyes widened. "It's not her. Oh God, it's not her." The screen cut to static. I closed the laptop gently. Claire looked at me, tears in her eyes. "I just wanted to know. Did she suffer?" I shook my head. "She fought hard, and in the end, I believe, she's at peace. It was the truth, or as close as I could offer." Before leaving, I noticed something. On the bedroom mirror, untouched for months, 3 faint marks, as if left by fingertips. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't mention it to Claire. Instead, I returned home, poured myself a drink, and stared long into my own reflection. No voices, no tapping, just me. And yet, a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye kept me watching a moment longer. I smiled bitterly. Some cases mark you forever. Some wounds never fully heal, and some reflections always watch back. I shut off the lights, the room falling into darkness. Somewhere in the silence, faint and patient. Tap, tap, tap. I poured another drink. After all, the night was still young.